intended to do to their naked bodies. But Cece had hung on his words and laughed at his jokes. He hadn't even kissed her or had dinner with her. 24 hours of no iced tea, no talking, and no smiles. He missed her. Couldn't get her out of his mind for one day. A woman had never spun him inside out like this. Lust used to be fun and short-lived, not obsessive. 3 weeks at home recuperating from a leg wound, a souvenir of his last mission, hadn't turned out anything like he'd expected. Limping to his mailbox the first day at home, he'd expected nothing more exciting than his standard fan mail from bill collectors. When the screen door on the rental house next to his burst open and Cece strolled down her driveway, the first thing he'd noticed was the sweet belly button winking at him between a red half shirt and white shorts. He'd thought one of his teammates from Bad had sent him a get-well-soon girl. No way could that little bombshell be his honest-to-God next-door neighbor. His luck had never run that hot, but she was indeed a new addition to the neighborhood. For the first time since moving there, he regretted having to leave as soon as he healed. Cece had destroyed any operating brain cells he'd possessed the minute she smiled at him. Blue eyes had sparkled bright as sapphires, tossed up in blazing sunshine. Every time she turned her head, he fought the urge to touch the wavy auburn hair that brushed her shoulders. He woke up at night thinking about that thick mass spread across a pillow. His pillow. His bed. But Cece wasn't the kind of woman you spent a couple of steamy nights with, then walked away. He'd be the first to admit he came by women easily, only because the women he met saw him as nothing more than a short-term sexual buzz, something to hold him over until the real thing came along. He'd accepted that for years, as a trade-off for not having to spend his life entirely alone. Hell, he wasn't long-term material. Not with his criminal history, or his current occupation that required going back to prison on a regular basis. And it wasn't like he could tell a woman he got arrested and thrown in the joint as part of his job description for Bad. Which was why he should be looking for fast, fun, and forgettable. Instead of waiting to talk to Cece here, the one place she couldn't disappear in her house and ignore him. He'd tried to do the same, to forget Cece, but he'd spent 3 amazing weeks pretending he had a normal life because a sweet young woman shared iced tea and talked to him. She made him want a normal life. He just didn't know how to go about making it happen. Of all the women who had climbed in his bed, he'd never desired one like he wanted Cece, and he hadn't even held her in his arms. Spending time with her felt too damned good not to try again to ask her out, to try to keep her. No mission had turned his gut inside out like this. He officially went back to work undercover in 2 days. Before that happened, he would know where he stood with her. Had she turned down the date because she'd really had plans with her brother, or because she wouldn't date a neighbor? He only wanted a date, a dinner, movie? Hell, he didn't know. Anything. Something. But if Cece told him no today, he'd respect her decision and walk away. Then ask Bad to relocate his residence while he was gone on the next mission, so he wouldn't have to face coming home to find another man on her patio. Popcorn crackled inside the bag he crushed in his fist. Damn it. He'd never been in knots over a woman before. "Hey, Jay," a familiar male voice yelled. Jeremy groaned. What the hell was Blade doing here? He stepped away from the side of the gazebo he'd been leaning against and turned to find Blade covering the 50 feet between them with long strides. Most people thought the skinny 6'4" guy got his name from having a body that moved through crowds like a black knife slicing water. Not because he'd carried a switchblade since grade school.